Hey guys, this is Connor with Conquest HP. This is my first ever video log or video blog, whatever you call it. Never done one before, but I've seen some. I'm going to use these as a way to kind of track my progress leading up to my first ever powerlifting meet. Just to kind of give you my thoughts, perspectives, and updates on the process leading up to the big day. Be my first ever powerlifting meet, so I'm going to kind of share what my training is like, share what my prep outside of the gym is like. If you haven't watched my other videos, I'm a manual osteopath, which is a form of hands-on therapy. I'm also a strength coach, and obviously I'm an aspiring powerlifter. So I'm going to try to weave those different perspectives together, and hopefully you can get something of use here if you have some interest in powerlifting or in therapy or in strength training, or if you just want to know what it's like to prepare for a meet. So the pertinent information, I guess, this first video log or vlog is all about kind of what I'm bringing to the table up to today. So I've scheduled a powerlifting meet, or I'm going to compete in a powerlifting meet on May 13th this year, which is just a little under 11 weeks away, 10 and a half weeks, something like that from now. I'm not completely new to strength training. I obviously have been strength training for about 15 years now total, but I've never trained specifically for powerlifting until the last, say, about 3 or 4 months. Up to that point, it was always just for general muscle growth or endurance, usually for sports performance. Usually that was for martial arts. I used to compete in Muay Thai kickboxing and grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that kind of thing. So I've never really had training specific to powerlifting competition before, apart from these last 3 to 4 months. So I'm kind of treating this as though I'm a complete newbie, and certainly last 3 or 4 months has kind of shown me that I am still kind of new to this game. About 4 months ago, I just kind of threw in the towel on competing in martial arts anymore. I've had lots of injuries through my competition in martial arts, particularly to my knees, and just the needs of the sport, the rotation, the torque, the contact, unpredictable opponents, that kind of thing, has kind of forced my hand, and it's just not the best idea for me in terms of joint health moving forward. So that's why I've kind of switched over to focusing on powerlifting. Of course, training for martial arts, you're still working on getting as strong as you can and as much endurance as you can, as much power as you can. But you always have to take a little bit off of that because you are logging like 5 to 10 hours a week of skill practice and sparring and other things like that definitely take away from your strength, and you have to cater that strength to like punching power, and still have endurance to go along with it. So powerlifting has been a welcome change so far. So in these past 3 to 4 months, I've just been kind of focusing on building a base. I haven't done too much maximal strength work yet, which might seem kind of silly leading up to a meet, but as I said, I've never done a focused strength block where I didn't have to account for massive mobility and endurance and impact demands. So I focused on building a base for those first couple months. Just in the last month, I've started to intensify things a little bit, drop my reps a little bit lower. Volume is still quite high, and in some future episodes, I'm going to go through my actual training plan, what I've been doing up to this point, and what I'm going to do moving forward. But that's kind of what brought me up to today. So I'm starting to kind of work on those lower reps, starting to kind of turn my work capacity and that nice wide base that I have into strength that hopefully I'll bring to the platform, with all kinds of PRs and no missed attempts, right? So that's kind of the game plan up to this point. I do have some recurring injuries, like I said, that I got from my martial arts training that I still have a couple of them bothering me to this day. In particular, I have some right anterior shoulder pain, which is a pretty common thing for lifters as well if you're doing a lot of benching. it kind of comes and goes. If my technique is good and my grips are managed well, then I'm okay with it. But it does show up every now and again. So that's important to know. And my right knee, I still have some patellar tendinopathy. I've had tendonitis in the patellar tendon there a couple of times now. And it's largely an offshoot of the massive damage I've done to my other knee. But that's all history. It's the right knee still bothers me from time to time. Once again, if I'm not good with my form on squats, or if I'm not careful with my execution of reps, like if I'm not careful with slowing down my descent into the bottom position of the squat, or if I do too much impact, if for some reason I want to try a little more jumping, or I run with Dexter, that kind of thing, it'll show up. If I sit too long, actually, that's probably the worst thing for it. But that's kind of coming around. It's getting better as I go, even though I'm working with heavier and heavier weights. But that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table right now. Currently, I weigh about 200 pounds. I've chosen to compete at 93 kilos, which is something like 204, 205 pounds. So that's me treating myself as a beginner. I know lots of people cut weight for this sport, for powerlifting, but because I'm so new to the training, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Like, I'm still making weekly and bi-weekly gains on my strength with just basic programming, no real peaking going on at this moment, which tells me that there's a lot of gains in the tank still, and I don't have to go through that process of trying to cut 10 pounds or 15 pounds to get that extra advantage. I haven't earned that yet, is what I feel like. Besides, I did have to cut weight from Muay Thai a few times, and I absolutely hate it. So why would I do it if I don't have to? You always end up a little bit scrawnier and skinnier and smaller. You have to end up having to build back some muscle mass afterwards as well, none of which I like to do. So I've just chosen to compete in a class where I can kind of try to build muscle leading up to the big day. I don't have to worry about dieting and cutting down. I can just focus on the more important things. So yeah, I'm about 200 right now. I can work up to about 204, 205 if I want to, if I have enough time to put on that mass. As of about 4 months ago, I was still hovering around 185. So I have put on quite a bit of mass in the last few months. Again, that was just me kind of artificially, if you want to say it that way, keeping my weight nice and low, even though my strength and my endurance and everything from martial arts is quite high, just so that I wouldn't have to fight bigger opponents, because fighting bigger opponents is very different from lifting against bigger opponents. I mean, bigger opponents in MMA and Muay Thai hit you in the head, so that's a pretty substantial difference. So after I stopped kind of keeping my weight down, it's very easy for me to put on mass. So that's kind of where I stand right now. I'm about to head out for another workout right now. If you haven't checked me out on Instagram, I put lots of my training videos up there. It's Conquest HP on Instagram. I'll link it in the notes below. And conquesthp.com is the website. That's where we do our online training and our therapy and strength coaching in person, that kind of stuff. So check out those resources if you want to know more of my backstory or what I'm doing right now. And keep an eye out for future episodes where I'm going to go more into detail about my diet leading up to the big day, what it looks like right now. Same thing for my training, what it looks like right now, how it's going to change leading up to that big day. And yeah, just what I think of the whole process and what I'm working on as I go. I'll try to give you some perspectives that kind of take from the therapy world and the strength coaching world and the athlete's perspective as I go. And if there's anything that you want me to cover as we go along, just leave me a comment below, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon.